Hi, Laura here back again with the Big 5 personality model. This is a personality model which is essentially grouped to 5 personality traits and has been developed from the 1980s onwards in psychological trait theory. So we're going to look at the 5 major personality traits that everybody will have some element of. Just to be clear, these traits fall on a spectrum, and we will default at one point of that spectrum, whether high, medium, or low. Depending on the situation, we can optimize ourselves up or down. The 5 traits are openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. And you may hear this be called the ocean model. That is because the first letter of these spells out ocean. We're going to deep dive into each one of these traits now, and for your understanding, it may be useful for you to make notes as you go along, whether you believe you are low, medium, and high in each of these traits. The first one is openness. Openness is all about our attitudes to adventure. It's about whether we are imaginative, curious, independent, and so on. Essentially, this is a non-scientific way of doing it, but are you the type of person who, when someone suggests something, say yes? Or are you the type of person who says no? Now, I know you're sitting there telling me, well, it depends. And of course it does, but you will tend to default to yes or no more often than the other. The next trait is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is about your dependability, discipline, and organization. Do you hate being late? Do you love a list? And if you do, by the way, because I absolutely love a list, do you like to cross out the thing when you've done it or tick it? For me, I find it more satisfying to cross it fully out. I can't stand being late, and I like being organized. If I don't have things written down or I don't have things in my calendar, then it doesn't happen. Conscientiousness is about taking pride in your work, and that organization might take the form of lists, of documents, of processes, and so on. The next personality trait is extraversion. Extraversion, you've probably heard of extroverts. They're very sociable, optimistic. They tend to be more optimistic and assertive. In fact, they get their energy from people. And if you remember me saying that this was on the spectrum, and that we would default at high, medium, or low, extraversion is the only trait that has a word for each element of that spectrum. Extroverts are on the high end, low end, introverts, and the medium are ambiverts, where they get some energy from people but need that time alone. Shout out to any of my fellow ambiverts listening. The next trait is agreeableness. This is about how hard it is for you to say no to people, how helpful you are, how sympathetic you are, how much trust people have in you. So agreeableness really is, for me, about people pleasing, or it can lead to people pleasing if you're too high agreeable. It's really about whether you are there to, support the team and say yes to things, or you may have worked with low agreeable people who are very much about logic and like, no, I'm not going to do this, and so on. If you are too high agreeable, you may find it really difficult to set boundaries with people and say no to things. So you find yourself doing a lot of tasks that you shouldn't really be doing. And the next area is neuroticism. Now, neuroticism has such terrible connotations in terms of language, but it's about your emotional calm, your levels of emotional calm, and you're able to self-assure. So just because I identify as a high neurotic, it doesn't mean that I am not as good as someone who's low neurotic. You actually need a combination of the two. High neurotics think about what could go wrong and they plan for that eventuality. But when it does actually happen, they may panic. Low neurotics are those which say, it'll be fine, it doesn't matter. But then don't plan for it and things can go wrong. But when they do go wrong, they manage to stay calm. And as I mentioned, we are on a spectrum. You may default somewhere low or high, but you can optimize yourself up and down. For example, I'm used to running events, but when it's not my training situation, I will optimize myself down to less conscientious because I don't have to deal with all of these things. Perhaps you tend to be more introverted, but you have to give a presentation or go to a networking event. In that situation, you could optimize yourself up to be more extroverted for that time being. So that's the Big 5 Ocean model. Hope you found that useful and you've marked where you think you fall. Please subscribe, check out our courses, and check back for another model video soon. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now.